Listen closely, because what you are about to hear is not ordinary motivation, but a quiet awakening that speaks directly to the hidden power shaping your life, the power of your belief, your words, and the unseen law that never sleeps. Many people spend years chasing money, pushing harder, worrying deeper, and wondering why abundance feels just out of reach. Yet few are taught that life responds not to effort alone, but to consciousness aligned with truth. There exists a divine order moving through everything, an intelligent current that answers expectation with precision, and when the mind is trained to recognize completion instead of lack, circumstances reorganize themselves with astonishing speed. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that man's word is his wand, and every spoken or written declaration sets forces into motion whether one believes it or not. When you declare yourself prosperous in spirit, the universe hears certainty rather than hope, and certainty is always answered. The number 7 has long symbolized divine perfection, and when it is repeated as 777, it becomes a seal of fulfillment, a reminder that nothing is missing and nothing is delayed. Writing these 3 digits is not superstition, it is an act of alignment, a visible sign that the mind has stepped out of fear and into faith. At this moment, many listening may feel curiosity mixed with doubt, and that tension is important because doubt is the final veil before revelation. What if abundance was never distant, only waiting for permission to appear? What if the reason wealth seems selective is because only those who accept completion can receive it? In the middle of this simple act lies a secret that unsettles the logical mind because it suggests that effort follows belief, not the other way around. The subconscious listens without argument, and once impressed with an image of fulfillment, it commands the outer world to match it. This is why repeating symbols of completion creates results that seem sudden or miraculous. Yet here is where suspense quietly enters, because the act alone is powerless without inner agreement, and many unknowingly cancel their own good by returning to old thoughts moments later. The universe never tests you, it mirrors you, and whatever you consistently accept as true must express itself. To write 777 is to announce an ending of struggle and a beginning of flow, but only those who understand the law can sustain what arrives. As this teaching unfolds, something subtle begins to shift, and a question forms within the listener, asking whether they are ready to release old stories and stand in completed good. This realization does not shout, it whispers persistently until the soul recognizes that faith is a decision, not a feeling, and that every symbol used with understanding becomes a doorway through which infinite supply can enter, rearranging events, opportunities, and timing in ways that appear effortless, yet are governed by exact spiritual law working flawlessly beyond personal effort or external circumstances, always consistently. As this understanding deepens, the mind begins to sense that something far greater than coincidence is at work, because life itself is governed by patterns that obey consciousness with unfailing accuracy. When Florence Scovel Shinn spoke of invisible supply, she pointed to a source that precedes form, a reservoir that responds only when the individual stops pleading and starts assuming fulfillment. This is where many stumble, because assumption feels risky to the conditioned mind, yet spiritually it is the highest form of trust. Writing 777 is not a request for wealth, it is a calm statement that the circle is complete and the need has already been met. The universe does not respond to desperation, it responds to conviction, and conviction is born when the mind accepts an end before the evidence appears. Here the teaching grows more intense, because the listener may feel a strange resistance rising, a fear that letting go of struggle means losing control. This fear is the last guardian of limitation, and it dissolves only when one understands that control has never produced abundance, alignment has. At this point in the journey, suspense tightens quietly, because the law begins to work the moment belief shifts, often in ways that unsettle comfort zones. Opportunities may appear that challenge old identities, money may arrive through channels once dismissed, and delays may surface that test patience, not to punish, but to purify belief. The universe rearranges before it delivers, and rearrangement often feels like uncertainty. Many abandon the practice here, misreading movement as failure, not realizing that motion precedes manifestation. Florence taught that when the demand is made upon the invisible, the visible must respond, but it responds in perfect order, not human timing. This is where faith must stand guard, refusing to interpret appearances negatively. Writing 777 again and again reinforces a mental picture of completion, telling the subconscious that the matter is settled. The subconscious then becomes an obedient servant, steering thoughts, actions, and even chance meetings toward the fulfilled state. Yet here lies the quiet, suspenseful truth. If the mind secretly entertains lack, the symbol loses its authority, not because the number fails, but because belief wavers. The law never contradicts itself, it simply mirrors the dominant assumption. This realization can feel unsettling because it places responsibility back into the individual's awareness. No outer force withholds wealth, only inner agreement releases it. As this truth settles, a sense of calm replaces urgency, and calm is the atmosphere in which abundance thrives. The listener may now feel suspended between old habits and new understanding, sensing that something irreversible is unfolding. Once the mind accepts that supply is complete, it cannot fully return to believing in scarcity. The bridge has been crossed inwardly, and though the outer world has not yet caught up, it must follow, because consciousness is always cause and experience is always effect, moving steadily toward the image held with faith, certainty, and unwavering inner acceptance of divine order at work now. Now the final movement of this teaching unfolds with quiet certainty, because once the mind has accepted completion, the universe has no option but to comply. Florence Scovel Shinn reminded us that man's supply is inexhaustible and immediate when thought aligns with divine law, and this is why symbols like 777 work not as magic, but as mirrors of consciousness. At this stage, the listener may notice a subtle peace replacing anxious effort, a feeling that something unseen is already arranged. This is not imagination, it is alignment settling into place. The law of abundance does not rush, yet it never forgets, and once impressed, it moves with absolute accuracy. Suspense dissolves here, because what once felt uncertain now feels inevitable. When you write 777 with understanding, you are no longer asking if abundance will come, you are declaring that it is already active. This declaration shifts your inner language, and inner language shapes outer experience. Money responds to belief, because belief determines decisions, confidence, and receptivity. Doors open not because you force them, but because you are finally willing to walk through without doubt. Unexpected help appears, debts loosen their grip, opportunities arise that feel strangely natural, and you may wonder why life resisted you for so long, only to realize it never did. Life was always obeying you. This realization is both empowering and humbling because it reveals that every past struggle was a lesson in misalignment, not punishment. Now the habit of completion must be guarded gently, without obsession, without fear of loss, because fear itself recreates lack. True prosperity consciousness rests in gratitude, knowing that supply flows through many channels and cannot be blocked. Writing 777 becomes a quiet ritual of remembrance, reminding the mind that it lives under divine order, not chance. At this point, effort becomes inspired action instead of struggle, and waiting becomes trust instead of frustration. The universe delights in speed when belief is firm, and delay only visits when belief wavers. This is the final truth many miss. Abundance is sustained by awareness, not rituals alone. When awareness holds steady, symbols amplify it, and life reflects it effortlessly. As this message completes its cycle, allow yourself to accept that your good is not ahead of you, it is surrounding you, arranging itself, moving toward you through perfect channels you do not need to manage. Stand still inwardly, speak completion outwardly, and let the law perform its work. If you are benefiting from our topics, please subscribe, like, and turn on the bell notification so you can see our new videos early.